Welcome to the Color of Success podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie J. Wong. I have a very special guest today. Samantha Tan is a 23-year-old Chinese-Canadian professional race car driver and owner of Samantha Tan Racing, who has already established herself as a trailblazer within the motorsport community. Humble, thoughtful, and ambitious, Samantha is relentless in her pursuit to achieve her goals, no matter what adversity. Her journey is empowering to women and people of color while inspiring the next generation to follow their dreams. Basically, she's a badass. From passion, ambition, and dream, Samantha Tan Racing was established in 2017 by Samantha and her father, Kenneth. The Canadian team has competed in Pirelli World Challenge and won back-to-back team championships in the GT4 SprintX West and Silver classes in 2019 and 2020, respectively. Continuing to build on the positive momentum, Samantha Tan Racing has taken on both the CREVENTIC 24H Series and Pirelli GT4 America in 2021. Earlier this year, Samantha became the first Asian woman to win the renowned 24H Dubai and first woman to win the 6H Abu Dhabi. Thank you so much, Samantha, for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited. What drew me to your story is that, one, you're an Asian Canadian woman racing. You're 23, as I recently found out. I don't want to put your age on blast, but that's a young woman building an empire, and you're a woman of my heart and wear falsies while you're racing. So I don't want to make any assumptions about guests. So can you describe who Samantha Tan is?
Oh, I think that's a really tough question. And one that I've been thinking about a lot recently about who am I and who is Samantha Tan? I know for a lot of people my age, we're all still trying to figure out who we are, still navigating the world. But me, I love racing. It's a big part of my life. I'm really into gaming. I think that I'm a pretty positive person, at least that's what my friends tell me. I would consider myself bold. And you did talk about falsies. I think I'm somebody who's trying to live unapologetically as true to myself as I can. I love women that wear makeup, particularly in sports. I know somebody, or an example more recently, Sha'Carri Richardson, who just killed it at the Olympic trials, and she was wearing these super long falsies and bright orange hair. I'm here for it.
Me too, girl. That's my superhuman, my superhero cape when I go on interviews, and just to give you that extra oomph. And I think you're onto something. I mean, at any age, people are still trying to figure themselves out. It's a journey, but I think living unapologetically is so freeing.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me how you got into racing and how your parents responded, or caregivers responded to that.
Yeah, so I started racing mostly because of my dad. Well, he introduced me to it. He's a big car fan and racing fan. So I kind of grew up around cars. I would go to track days with my dad. I'd watch F1 races with him ever since I can remember. And so I grew to love the feeling of speed at a very young age, but it wasn't until I sat in my very first race car. It was a Ferrari 458 Challenge. I was 14 years old, and I got taken out on a hot lap with a pro driver. And just the intense acceleration, the braking, the G-forces, I was just absolutely blown away. I had the best time of my life. And as soon as I stepped out of that car, I was like, wow, this is so badass. So I think I want to be a race car driver. And so right after I got my driver's license, I started racing when I was 16 years old. Basically in regional races in the US in a 1991 Honda Civic, and it's just
the classic
all
car.
Since then. Yeah.
So, I mean, it sounds like your dad early on, you guys had a bonding experience with that, and now you're business partners. How has that relationship kind of blossomed over time?
Yeah, I mean, my dad is my biggest support. I owe him the world and more. We started the race team in 2017, kind of out of necessity. In racing, if you're a driver, most of the time you do rent a car from a team. And in 2016, unfortunately, right after the first race, we had paid for the whole season and everything, and the team went into receivership. And the way that they kind of like paid us back was by giving us the race car. And me and my dad were just like, oh no, what do we do now? We don't have the team to support this car. But luckily we had some friends in the same series as me, the Whitmer family, who are also Canadians. And they luckily teamed up with us and helped us along. And I still race with Nick Whitmer today. He's one of my teammates.
That's awesome.
But that's basically what started Samantha Tan Racing. I mean, we've got an incredible team that we've kept for 4 years, and we're more like a family now.
I mean, your team's incredibly supportive. When I reached out to them, they're just, you could tell they're rooting for you. And you know, when you said that as an outsider, I was like, cool, you got a car. And then you're like, oh God, like, what am I going to do with this? So, that's awesome. So, you know, it takes a lot of mental preparation, I would think, to get on the track, because there is obviously a clear level of danger in your sport versus some other sports, or even driving on the highway, obviously. So how do you get yourself mentally prepared or in the zone to go on the track and kill it?
Mm-hmm. I think in racing, cars have gotten much, much safer nowadays, especially race cars, because they're built to withstand those kinds of big crashes. And so I'm honestly not as scared about injury anymore. It's more the nervousness of performing well, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I actually used to compete in like track and field in high school, and I would get that same kind of anxiety like right before the race, and it doesn't really go away until you're actually like in the moment doing the thing, doing the racing, right? So for me, what helps kind of like calm myself down is I'm also an artist. So I would either like do a little bit of drawing beforehand or listen to some music and just try to calm myself down. And another big thing for me is thinking about the successful experiences I've had in the past and just drawing upon those kind of like happy memories to kind of establish that kind of example for myself, to prove to myself that, you know, like I can be successful and I can do what I'm doing, and just to not be scared.
So what does Samantha Tan listen to get in that mind frame? Are we talking classical music, K-pop? Like what are we saying? Ratchet music?
It does vary. I have been listening to a bit of K-pop recently, especially Fancy by Twice.
Yeah.
It just gets me going sometimes.
They're so cute though, really.
Yeah,
like,
they really are.
They're just such a positive group. And I mean, just to have that many members and still keep it together is amazing to me.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, I know when I was doing a little bit of research that there was a crash in 2017, and then you having to, obviously to today, still compete at a high level. So how did you kind of cope with that crash and then your first time getting back on the racetrack?
Yeah, that was a big defining moment in my career for me, because it was my first like huge crash. I hit a wall at 100 miles per hour, and it really shattered my confidence as a driver, because, you know, it was like this huge crash that red flag can't like basically ended everybody else's race as well, because it was such a big crash. And I just felt like so horrible about myself. So yeah, it was just like, it was a very tough time for me. I sprained my ankle actually, because I had my foot on the brake pedal right when I hit the wall. You're supposed to actually pull both your arms and feet in before you hit the wall. But you know, fight or flight instincts, and I just kept my foot in there, unfortunately. But I did actually get back into the car a week right after that crash.
Wow.
Just to, you know, get myself back into it, because I think like the longer you wait, the more you start like overthinking things, and the more you start getting basically scaring yourself, right? And although my confidence was, you know, pretty roughed up, I think I stuck to myself and kept believing in myself, and, you know, returned to that same racetrack 3 years later and had a podium finish in one, like a very, very competitive class. I mean, it was honestly very, very, humbling almost. I was so proud of myself to step up onto that podium and like think about how far I've come as a driver and all the training I went through and all the hard work that I've done to, you know, come back and come from basically rock bottom to stepping back onto the podium. It was just incredible.
And celebrating your wins, because it wasn't just about having a podium finish. It was about your courageousness, not giving up, your tenacity, because that could have taken a lot of people out of the industry. I mean, how easy it is to walk away from kind of facing that fear versus addressing it. And a week after, by the way, that's amazing.
And I think that's one of the things I love about racing is just always pushing yourself to improve, you know, not doubting yourself really, but, you know, or when you do doubt yourself, to really just push through and keep being determined and persistent and just try to achieve your goals.
So aside from your dad and your professional team, which it sounds like also family, loved ones, who else do you rely on for support when times get tough?
Yeah, I mean, I have a really great support system of friends in California as well as Toronto. They're just always there for me when things get hectic. They're there to ground me. And my boyfriend as well, who I've been with for three years now. I know it hasn't been like perfect, but I know he's always there to support me, and he tries to come out to a lot of my races as well. And so, yeah, just having this like really strong support system has helped me be as successful as I am today.
How do you balance all these relationships? Because I imagine, like you said, you're bouncing around to different areas. I mean, you're in a hotel room today, you know, just got into New York. So how do you maintain the intimacy with your friends, your boyfriend, and all your loved ones?
Yeah, it's definitely very tough, especially this year. I mean, just traveling all the time and not being in one specific place for more than like a week or two, it gets tough, but I try to make time when I can. And, you know, while balancing the rest of my life and racing and training and my other hobbies, it's tough, but I think it all came down to just like good organization that I developed from balancing school and racing in the past.
Yeah.
Because like when I was a full-time college student, like, man, that was crazy.
How did you cope with that? I mean, having a full class schedule and trying to compete, and yeah, that's so tough.
Yeah, I mean, like I always tell people like school was so hard because I'd have race weekends where I'm gone from like the Thursday to the Sunday, and then I'd have exams on the Monday, you know, and it was just like about studying in between sessions and, you know, negotiating with my professors and collaborating with a lot of my friends who were in the same lectures as me to just get notes from them. It was like absolutely insane. But it really came down to like good time management and just sticking to my schedule as best as I could. And I think it's the same thing for a lot of these relationships, is just like making the time for those people who are important to you.
How did some professors or lecturers respond? Because here you are going, I have a race car race. And so, you know what I mean? I can just imagine, I used to teach a little bit for undergraduates, and I feel like I was way more lax. Like, yeah, the playoff game is today. Like, let's get everything taken care of. But yeah, how was that process and negotiation?
It varied from my teachers. Some of them were like super stoked about it. They would allow me to take exams early. Like they would be there with me in case I needed anything. And some of them, like one time I had a teacher, I told her like, I have a 24-hour race this weekend, like from Saturday to Sunday, and my exam's Monday morning at like 8 a.m. And I was like, is there any way I could take this exam early, like, or like after, like, this is a really like a big race for me. It's pretty important. And she was like, nope, she wouldn't budge about it. And so we podiumed that race. We came third, but I missed the podium session or podium finish to
Oh.
fly back to California to take my exam the next morning, which was unfortunate. But you know, you got to do what you got to do.
But isn't that a great story? It's like, I don't have this picture because I took this exam at 8 a.m., right?
Yeah, I feel like I've missed a lot of milestones in my life. Kind of like I missed my high school graduation for racing. That was a pretty big one. But I wouldn't have had it any other way, honestly.
Well, there's a lot of sacrifices that it sounds like you've made. And so, but at the same time, consistent with your values and what you want to achieve. And people seem to be supportive, aside from maybe the teacher that didn't allow you to take the exam.
It was really unfortunate.
Yeah. But, you know, I think there's the other part of negotiation in a larger the industry where it is very male dominated, white male dominated. And so how have you been able to navigate the world and the industry in this case?
Yeah, I mean, I think I talked about this in a recent interview as well. Like, how is it being an Asian female in this male dominated industry? And, you know, although I haven't had any like blatant racism towards me in racing, and like, thank God I have had some sexist comments, you know, some people who think that like I slept my way up the ladder to get where I am today. And I'm just like, completely incorrect. I worked my ass off to be here.
Yeah.
But I think something that I really struggled with when I first started racing was the stereotypes. You know, I think everybody's heard the stereotypes that Asians can't drive or women can't drive. And, you know, the other one where like Asian women specifically are like dainty and diminutive and they're not like very outspoken. I think I didn't really have any role models growing up. And like when I started in racing, I didn't have anybody that looked like me that could like disprove these stereotypes. I only really had my personal experiences to prove them wrong. And it really came down to just like believing in myself because I wanted to prove that, you know, stereotypes don't define us. And so just like living as an Asian woman in this male dominant industry, I feel like I've been given this opportunity to define myself and define success on my own terms. And I think one of the greatest pleasures in life is being able to do something that people say you can't do.
See, and that's an attitude of a winner, regardless of it's a podium finish, right? Because and seriously, in all seriousness, not all people are willing to put themselves out there like that. I wish we had met sooner in your life because I'm also very clearly outspoken. And so, but it took me longer than you to be unapologetic. And so it is a huge inspiration for you to use your platform to disprove the stereotypes, but also be you, right?
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, you know, these sexist comments, how do you address them when people say them to you?
I mean, I try not to get angry. I try to like respond to it in the most eloquent way possible because I feel that the results are like proving everything wrong. You know, actions speak louder than words. And so I just try to put my head down and work hard and, you know, prove them all wrong.
You know, and one of our past guests kind of labeled this, I didn't expect to spill my guts so much on the show, but if you had to spill your guts to your comfort level, I mean, what was one of the biggest challenges that you have faced in your life?
Oof. I think it's the hate comments on social media because I feel like I always want to reply to them, especially when it's about something that I care about, like especially like when there's sexist comments or they're racist comments. And I know that like there's so many online trolls and I do have to pick my battles, but I feel so strongly about like protecting my values that sometimes I get caught up in just like these stupid Instagram or Facebook like comment wars, you know. But it's tough. I mean, it's tough for some of them to not get to me sometimes, but I really just have to like reflect and think about all the things that I'm doing and just, again, try to prove them all wrong.
A lot of people don't realize that there's a person behind that actually is associated with that account, whether it's a fan account or not. Like it's hard not to read those comments when you are putting yourself out there. And that's why I say you are brave for speaking up, because there are people that will just ignore it and it'll continue to go on. And at the same time, we really can't address all the hate, because there's a lot of positives too.
Yeah.
Keep your chin up for sure. And, there are a lot of people including myself, who support you, because that's just their issue and not yours.
Yeah, they're just projecting their insecurities.
Exactly. Well, as a psychologist, I'm just like, ugh, like, what's going on in your life? It helps to externalize that for sure. So what does a day in the life or a week in the life of Samantha Tan look like? Because it seems like it varies, but what is the life of a race car driver look like?
Yeah, again, yes, as you said, it varies because sometimes I'm traveling every week, basically. But when I am home in California, I try to wake up around like 9 a.m., make myself breakfast. Like as an athlete, I try to eat like pretty healthy, and then I go to the gym. Either it's an hour or 2 hours, and then make food, catch up on emails. Sometimes have media interviews or podcasts to go to. And then during like race weekends, normally we try to arrive like a week before the race because they are international races, and dealing with that jet lag is just a struggle. Yeah. And especially now, it's been super difficult to travel because of the pandemic, and it's just always very, very stressful, especially when you're trying to get all your documents in line, and like sometimes even the airport officials, like, they don't really know what the rules are. I've missed like a few flights because they didn't know what the rules are and they wouldn't allow me into the country. But it's been crazy. It's been a crazy past year, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. How has it been since the pandemic? I mean, I know that obviously like the rules are all very confusing, but how is it different traveling versus when you were going before the pandemic, where things were just kind of more open?
Yeah, so this was actually my very first year doing any international races.
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
Yeah, so before it was just like doing domestic travel within the US, and it was like super easy, but now it's like you have to deal with all these COVID forms and getting your PCR tests done, and having like the proper letters from, like, for example, my race series and the proper sports organizations. It's just a lot of documentation. But when you get there, I mean, it's like pretty smooth sailing. It's always just getting out of the US and getting over there.
Which is very interesting. That's the thing. But, I mean, our rates are just, amazing in terms of vaccination. So,
yes,
it is kind of tricky going to other countries where they haven't yet caught up to people being vaccinated.
Yeah, but now they are finally accepting vaccine cards, especially in Europe. So fingers crossed, that's all I'll need to go now.
That's amazing. So what's one of your favorite countries that you've been to so far?
Oh, I think this year, either Dubai or Italy. Dubai specifically because, it's an incredible place, but also because, the 24-hour Dubai win that we had this year, it was just such a monumental moment in my career, and it just holds a very special place in my heart. And then Italy, because I've just always loved Italy. I love the food, and the track that we were at was actually in rural Italy, like in Tuscany. So it's just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And the track itself was amazing. So it was a very great time.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, I just can't wait to go back to doing international travel. We just got back from Hawaii, and it was magical in itself because it was just like, we get to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love Hawaii. And I feel so grateful that I'm still able to travel and do what I do during the pandemic. Like, it's been crazy. Like, most of the flights I've been on have been like completely empty.
That would make me feel a lot better, but then again, your celebrity status, but that, I think that's really good that you're taking protective measures and such, but also that you get to see the world. I mean, did you ever think that this would lead? I know you had big dreams, but that it would lead to like international races and seeing the world at such a young age?
Yeah, it's surreal. I have to like definitely take some time and like stop and like think about where I'm at and what exactly I've achieved, because I feel like things are just going by so fast, especially like this past year and a half. It's just been absolutely crazy. And I know I have big dreams and big goals, but yeah, I really have to like stop and, be very thankful for where I'm at, be thankful of all the people that have raised me up to be where I am today. And it's just crazy.
Yeah, one of my mentors said, we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. And it just, yes, you are one of those people that is really going to set the tone for other young Asian women to say, this is what I want to do. Samantha could do it, right? When I reached out to you, I said, I have 2 young daughters who are 9 and 6. And I was like, I get to interview a female race car driver. Oh. What? So, I think that it's just so important to show young kids what's out there, and we don't have to fit into these boxes.
Yeah, definitely. So, embrace your differences, embrace your uniqueness.
Exactly. And, I've interviewed quite a few Canadians, but what was it like growing up in Canada as an Asian female?
Oh, this is another like tough topic because I grew up in a very small town north of Toronto, very like predominantly white. So I was like one of 2 like Asian students in my class for like many, many years. So I kind of like, had that cultural identity crisis of whether or not I would like reject my heritage or conform to like the stereotype basically. And unfortunately I did end up rejecting like my culture. And like, I grew up hating being Asian because, I had times where I would bring like Asian food into class and my peers would make fun of me. And like, I know that it's, you're young then and it's kind of like they're still learning and it's not really a racist thing, but it definitely took a toll on me, So yeah, it was pretty hard. And it wasn't until I moved for college and went to Irvine and I was once again surrounded by many Asian people. And I started to see the beauty of like Chinese culture again and really delving back into accepting my culture. And it was just a like whole new experience.
Well, it's funny because my dad is and was a grocer. And so I would have sandwiches all the time. So I wouldn't have those yummy home cooked Asian foods. And I grew up in the Bay Area. So everyone around me, there's majority Asian Americans. But it's so funny when you said that, because I'd be like, F you, this is a delicacy. Like if I had your lunchbox. But I mean, in all seriousness, there's an acute awareness, sometimes a painstaking awareness that you were one of few Asian Canadians. And it's hard as a child not to be internalize that shame when people are kind of looking at you weird.
Yeah, definitely.
But Irvine, how did that form your cultural identity? I know you said you embraced it, but how did you go about embracing and kind of defining your young adulthood in your cultural identity?
Yeah, I mean, it was everything from like partaking in, Lunar New Year again and, experiencing all the different like food and this is a tough question for me again. I feel like I have a hard time talking about my like defining my cultural identity because I feel like it's something I'm still struggling to find, I guess. Especially because it's like I feel like I don't fit fully in that like Chinese category because I don't speak Mandarin, I don't speak Cantonese. I know my mom speaks Cantonese, but I never grew up like getting to learn any of that, and so it's like I'm almost kind of rejected from that community, but I'm also like rejected from the white community because I'm too like I look different, right? So yeah, I mean it's been tough, but I feel like I'm starting to see how my culture fits within my identity and trying to embrace it as best as I can.
I wish my mom, a lot of my friends are like, oh, I had to go to Chinese school or Vietnamese school. And I was like, I wish my mom did make me do that because then it would benefit me, not just like fitting in, but just, there's so much benefit to being bilingual, multilingual. And I've taken Korean class for like 4 years because I love K-dramas. And obviously I'm a huge ARMY. But I have my like Time magazine of BTS up there. So that's why I
love that.
that's why I'm just so happy about doing this podcast and just showcasing people around the world and their inspirational stories, because I think when we get a very narrow view of what Asian Americans, Asian Canadians are, we start to like associate ourselves, and like people start to associate that to like every Asian person that they meet. And we're multidimensional like everyone else.
Exactly. And that's why I think the Stop Asian Hate movement was so pivotal this year.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to ask a more fun question. Do you watch the Fast and the Furious series, and like, what do you think about it? Because my husband, that's like his all-time favorite franchise, and we've been watching it because we're going to watch Fast 9 in theaters next week.
Oh my God. I actually just watched Fast 9 premiere last week. I think it was incredible. Definitely recommend going to watch it. It was awesome. It was still kind of like the very ridiculous stunts, but you kind of expect it. It was very fun. But yes, I have watched all of the Fast and Furious movies. Hardcore stan. I actually did a photo shoot with the original Suki car from Fast and Furious 2.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was super cool for Asian Heritage Month. Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, to be exact. But yeah, I absolutely love the series. It's a bit, what's the word? Not completely accurate.
Yeah. But I love the line like, hey, Dom, cars don't fly. And you're like, yeah. But, I asked because I would think that some colleagues might be like, I'm not going to watch that because like, that's just not reality. But I think there's something so escapist and fun about the series that it's not about looking at techniques all the time. It's like, this is the ridiculousness just keeps getting more and more, and no one cares because Han is alive.
Yes. But I think like the Fast and Furious franchise was definitely like very, very important to the development of the car community, especially in like California and just like the whole tuner scene. I know I'm getting kind of technical with that, but
no, like tell us about that.
Cool. No, yeah, again, like people try to recreate those cars, and it's like super awesome, and it's just inspired a lot of people to tune the cars the way that they want it and be unique and individual with.
There's a creative side to it sounds like.
Yes, definitely. Everything from picking the paint and any like decals that you have to the full build. It's awesome to see, especially like I feel like I'm still very involved in the car community. So I still go to a lot of events, and it's just awesome to see how creative people are with their car builds.
So what message are you hoping to send moving forward to people out there that are new to watching or also kind of longtime fans?
Of Fast and Furious or like racing?
Oh no, of racing, real racing. Although they really race, but just in terms of like your platform, like what are you hoping to continue to spread in terms of your message?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm so blessed to have been given a platform, to have been given a voice to try and better my community. Like I do want to make a change. I do want to inspire and empower people because especially because that wasn't something that I had when I was growing up. I definitely want to be that role model for people. And, I want people to continue chasing their dreams.
So where can people follow your journey and reach out to you with positive comments, people, not to get into IG battles?
Yeah, so my website is www.st-racing.org. I do have a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at Samantha with an extra A, Tan on Instagram. Twitter is str_Samantha, and Facebook is the same. So be sure to check me out.
And I'm going to do kind of a more sensitive kind of a message, but if you could tell your dad something to kind of express some of the sentiments that you did during the interview, what would it be?
Oh, I know it was just Father's Day. I wrote him like something, a little something on my Instagram the other day, but I just want to say I'm totally going to like start crying. Thank you for believing in me. And I know that not all parents are supportive of their kids or don't give them the time of day sometimes, unfortunately. And that just like, I'm so grateful that you gave my brother and I the time, even when you were super, super stressed and super busy with work. Just thank you for everything.
Thank you so much for that. I loved that. I was like tearing up as well, like just listening to that. It's so tender. And I'm hoping that people could also see that Asian parents can be loving too. I'm a big hugger to my girls, so I'm hoping we can change the narrative a little bit, that there's also, it's okay to express emotion.
It's a lot of love. It's a lot of love, you know. I think my dad came here to give us a better life, and I feel like that's how all us Asian parents have.
Yeah. Well, Samantha, thank you so much for being on the show. The time just flew by, and I'm so grateful for you to even come on the show and just be so honest and vulnerable.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the Color Success Podcast. Listen, like, subscribe on all major streaming platforms, YouTube, IG, and if you want exclusive content, you can join our Patreon. All links can be found at colorofsuccesspodcast.com.